Hello everyone, reporting today for First Updates Now, I'm Abhas, and with me here is Team 14725, Java the Hutts from Florida. They were our Freight Frenzy World Champions, and they've come back swinging with just an absolute powerhouse of a robot. There's just so much to dive into: hardware, software, sensors, game strategy, so much of that and more coming up on First Updates Now.
This video on First Updates Now is made possible by viewers like you and also the following sponsors. SOLIDWORKS is free for first teams. Over 80% of US engineering schools and 370,000 plus companies use SOLIDWORKS to design great products. SOLIDWORKS can help you design a great robot on desktop or on the cloud. Go to solidworks.com/first to register your team. Check out our all-new FTC content coming to Fun's YouTube, including new hosts from the FTC community. We'll have resource guides, top 10 moments, behind the bots interviews, and walkthroughs to help your FTC team improve at youtube.com/firstupdatesnow.
All right, guys, let's start with just all the way from the beginning. You know, you won last season, you were the world champions in Freight Frenzy, and I'm sure you wanted to repeat that, right? So the first step in my mind to doing that is figuring out just the basic design idea. So walk me through how you guys decided what type of robot you would go for, right? Like whether you would have a bunch of horizontal, vertical extensions, a turret, just, you know, which design you went with and how you went about doing that.
So beginning off with the season, we obviously started with a drivetrain. So we looked at a lot of custom chassis designs, and something we really wanted to consider this season was saving space. So to do that, what we did is have these vertical motors on the four corners instead of having them at the base of the drivetrain like teams usually do. Now, while this does increase the center of gravity, and we did account for that, we have four motors located at the bottom of the drivetrain for both the arm and the elevator, which help us to lower our center of gravity. Along with that, so we really wanted to have as fast of an elevator as possible this season. So as soon as we started designing, we knew immediately that we wanted to do counterspringing, we wanted to do cascade stringing, we wanted to do linear rails combined with the Misumis. So to do all of that, we just focused on having a really fast slide, and we knew we wanted to have a horizontal extension so we could pole vomit, as we call it.
Yeah, and so, you know, last season you guys had that turret, obviously worked out very well, so it must have been like a distinct choice to not go with that turret again. So what was the logic behind that, and how has it worked out for you guys so far?
I mean, so after seeing Delta Force at Worlds last year and seeing how simple their bot was, we definitely wanted to go with a simpler design. That kind of happened. It is still pretty complicated, but we try to keep our mechanisms as simple as possible. So we have a virtual 4-bar in the front that extends out, as well as a vertical lift up here. For the most part, our mechanisms are simple, but because we have multiple mechanisms, like a virtual 4-bar in the front, elevator, and they work in conjunction to cycle cones efficiently.
Yeah, so why don't we just get started with your intake, walk us through it, and then we'll talk about like how it's changed throughout the season and what sensors and stuff you guys have on it.
Sure. All right, so this is actually V4 of our intake. We first started off with a full metal version of the intake. Okay, so we went with a 4-bar design because we wanted our intake to be able to pass through our deposit. Most teams have a simple claw that just opens. However, when we go and transfer our cone, we need the back of the claw to be open so the cone can pass through it. That's why we use the virtual 4-bar. And we stuck with the same geometry throughout the entire season. Something interesting about this design is that we use a over-center linkage so that when this servo is closed, I can't physically move the claw open. And that just helps with rigidness on the claw, as well as conserving servos. We don't want to break them.
Yeah, and so, you know, you guys mentioned this is the version 4 of your intake. So I know you said you started out with all metal. You went to this carbon fiber nylon material throughout the season. What other changes has your intake seen, you know, from a sensor standpoint? Did you have all of the sensors you have currently from day one, or have you guys added things, and what have you added if so?
So one thing that particularly changed was we initially had a much smaller grip radius. So we had smaller arms for the virtual 4-bar on the linkage, and it wasn't able to open as far. And so we increased the grip radius. We also switched to using a distance sensor on both the intake to detect if there's cones in the intake and also at the back. And we use that as redundancy to check our intake's height off the ground for picking off the stack.
Sure, and you know, let's talk a little bit about, from a programming perspective, how you guys use the sensors you have in autonomous teleop just throughout the match.
So we have, as Robbie mentioned, we have a sensor right here to detect when we have a cone in our intake, and another sensor below it to detect our height off the ground of the arm. So in autonomous, we use the intake sensor to drive into the stack and determine when we have a cone, and then grab it and then pass it through our intake. And then in the back of our robot, we have a pole guide with a color sensor on it, and we use that to know when we are behind a pole, so we can automatically deposit in auto, as well as teleop. So we have an autonomous intake as well as an autonomous deposit in teleop. So our drivers only have to press one button between each cycle to place a cone. We press one button to put the intake down, and then we automatically intake and deposit.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And so before we jump into your deposit, I think one of the things I really want to highlight about your guys' intake is your counter springing. So it seems like it's looks very complicated, but I'm sure you guys have just implemented it so elegantly. So walk us through how you've counter-sprung it and what advice you would have for teams looking to do a similar system.
Yeah, so when you think of counter-springing, you kind of typically think of doing the math to figure out what type of springs you would need. And you can see right here we just use simple surgical tubing. The advantage of using surgical tubing is that it's infinitely adjustable. We can use different diameters, we can adjust the initial length of the spring, as well as it has a really high stretch rate to get that stretch. And as you can see, it counter springs perfectly. And we did zero math to be able to get this to work. It's really just having that adjustment in your system is key. And it was similar to our suspension system last year. We had adjustment in our suspension and it worked flawlessly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so now talking about your transfer, walk me through your transfer sequence, if you've made any changes to it all throughout the season, and how did you decide to make those changes?
Okay, so with our transfer, as Caden mentioned before, with our intake, we have to be able to pass the cones through the back of the intake, which is why we chose that design. So after the cone is grabbed by the intake, it'll rotate up, and then there is a period of time in which it's held by here. The deposit claw then has to grab the cone. The intake claw will let go and move forward, allowing the deposit claw to move upwards and transfer back over. So we've had a lot of iterations with our deposit claw. Not all of them were successful. And something interesting was we originally had planned on using a virtual 4-bar at the beginning of the season. But as we had even gone about manufacturing it, all the plates and all the 3D printed parts, we assembled it and realized that it just wasn't practical space-wise, and we were able to accomplish something just as fast, if not slightly faster, by using a wrist servo and having a claw.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, right? Just understanding what's going on with your robot and how to adapt it to make it better. So now jumping into your deposit, let's first start with your lift. You guys have a pretty very unique or advanced lift system using multiple slides, rails, cascade, just all of it. So walk us through just the whole lift system first, and we'll talk about how it's changed throughout the season.
All right, so this season we wanted to go with a super fast lift. That's why we use constant force springs to counteract the force of gravity. As you can see, our lift isn't falling down when it's just standing up like this. And yeah, so far it works really, really well. So in order to have this counter springing, we have to string our slides in cascade. So as you can see, we have strings that go from our spool up to our first stage, pull up the first stage, and then we have extra strings right here that pull up our carriage.
Sure, and so now just talking about the physical like sliders and linear rail you use, walk us through what you're using there. You know, there's just so many options out on the market, and why you guys went with the choices that you did.
Yeah, so for these slides right here, we're using Misumi SAR 340s, the 400 millimeter tall slides. Most teams usually run 300 mil slides, so these are a little tall, as well as we use MGN9 linear rails with double blocks for our carriage. And so far that's helped with have a really, really rigid motion system. Yeah.
Sure, and so like evaluating this, I mean, you know, you guys used like an elevator last year with like the Go Build a V-Rail and just a bunch of different options. Is this your preferred slide method for future seasons? Is this what you would advise teams, or is there like some drawbacks to it that teams should be aware of?
Well, what I would say is last year we used the V-rails with the bearings that went along the rail, and we had quite a few problems with the V-rails actually wearing away just because of the off-axis weight that was being put on them. So after switching to this season, I will say that Cascade is pretty complicated in most scenarios versus just doing simple continuous. And there are ways we probably could have made, we probably could have just done continuous and stuck with it and made it just as fast. But I feel like doing Cascade this season was a very good engineering challenge, and being able to do that counterspring was very helpful for this season.
Yeah, and so talking from like a sensors and software standpoint, what automations do you have going on here? Anything you think that's really special that other teams could look to implement as well?
So for our automation in TeleOp, we just use a basic finite state machine to cycle between the states of intake, transfer, and outtake. But as I mentioned before, we automate a lot of our robots. So we have fully automated intaking and outtaking. So we have a pole guide here, which helps us guide into the pole in autonomous and TeleOp as well. And the color sensor right here to...
Yeah, and so, the pole guide has been just one of those things that's like the hallmark of the POWERPLAY season, right? It's what everyone's talking about is pole guide, junction guide. So walk us through how you guys went about developing your pole guide. Was it something you had intended like through the whole season, or was it a very recent addition you made to your robot?
So what I will say about our pole guide is it was always on our to-do list. We just never got around to it because we didn't really see it as a super high priority item. We started off with a TPU guide, which was frankly terrible, and it bended way too much, and it was basically useless. But then after that, and keep in mind, we did design this after the ruling came out about the minimum 4-inch radius. And we designed a PLA version, and so far it's been proven to be amazing. We really should have added it sooner. It's almost crucial to our auto, and it helps an insane amount in TeleOp. And then from there, we've added a second iteration, and then we believe that adding the color sensor has been incredibly helpful, as allow us to do that auto deposit like we talked about.
Yeah, all right, folks. Well, I mean, you've heard it here, all of Java the Hutt's secrets about their robot this season. Just absolutely fantastic machine. We're going to see how it does the rest of the day at the Florida State Championship. Hopefully we'll be seeing it in Houston for round 2 this year. But signing off for First Updates Now, I'm Abhas, and this is Team 14725 Java the Hutt's.
This video on First Updates Now is made possible by viewers like you and also the following sponsors. SolidWorks is free for first teams. Over 80% of U.S. engineering schools and 370,000 plus companies use SolidWorks to design great products. SolidWorks can help you design a great robot on desktop or on the cloud. Go to solidworks.com/first to register your team. Check out our all-new FTC content coming to Fun's YouTube, including new hosts from the FTC community. We'll have resource guides, top 10 moments, behind the box interviews, and walkthroughs to help your FTC team improve at youtube.com/firstupdatesnow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on our new videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow, and check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.